Hi, my name is Aiman Sarah, and I'm going to talk about the introduction. There's the three rules of law in society. Firstly is form the foundation of society by regulating freedoms and duties. Secondly, resolve disputes, administer penalties, and ensure oversight. And lastly is plays a crucial role in social, political, and economic realms. Law exists that are both widely recognized and constitutional. The Joric Dictionary of English Law describes law as a set of actions individual must follow in their conduct. Para legal expert John Austin described law is seen as a sovereign decree backed by punitive measures. There is a three importance of legal history, which is firstly, involves studying the evolution of legal system and laws over time. Secondly, looks at how legal language, expression, and traditional practice shape historical legal texts. And lastly, is let the dynamic nature of law and its adaptation to changing social, political, and economic context.
Good evening everyone, my name is Chan Sing Eun, the leader of this group, and today I'll be presenting 2.0 development of law in Malaysia. Let's begin by looking at the traditional legal systems that predate Malaysia's current framework. Malaysia's traditional legal systems are rooted in Ada Perpate and Ada Temenggong. Ada Perpate was introduced in Negeri Sembilan and Naning Melaka, was based on the matrilineal system and democratic principles. Its laws were passed down orally. In contrast, Ada Temenggong was adopted in all other Malay states. It followed a matrilineal and autocratic system. It could be found in legal codes like the Hukum Kena Melaka and Undang-Undang Laut Melaka. Moving on to the influence of Islamic law, we see its integration into local legal codes. The Hukum Kena Melaka, which was founded by Sultan Muzaffar Shah in the 15th century, combined Islamic law, Hindu traditions, and Ada Temenggong. This code outlined the responsibilities of rulers and officials. It set the boundaries of governance and justice. Meanwhile, the Undang-Undang Laut Melaka outlined the maritime law, focusing on piracy, trade, and shipboard responsibilities. Next is the application into Malaysia's administrative system. In Malaysia, the separation of powers is established by the Federal Constitution, dividing government authority into three branches: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, to maintain checks and balances. Under Article 39, the executive authority is vested in the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, but is exercised by the cabinet led by the Prime Minister, who is responsible for implementing laws, creating policies, and overseeing government administration. Article 44 grants legislative power to Parliament, comprising the King, Dewan Rakyat House of Representatives, and Dewan Negara Senate, which enacts laws and debate national issues. Article 121 Clause 1 ensures the judiciary operates independently from both the executive and the legislature. The Federal Court, as the highest court, reviews laws and executive actions to ensure they align with the Constitution. This system was inspired by the Hukum Kena Melaka, ensures the transparency and effective functioning of the government. Next, let's discuss the influence of English law on Malaysia's legal system, which began during the British colonial rule. The first step was the first Charter of Justice in 1807, introduced to Penang. This allowed English law to be applied to Penang as it was considered a crown colony. The Court of Judicature of Prince of Wales Island was established to implement English law, including common law and equity. The second Charter of Justice extended English law to Singapore and Malacca, centralizing the legal system across the shared settlement. By 1855, the third Charter of Justice restructured the court system to cope with growing population and caseload, dividing it into two branches, one for Penang and one for Singapore and Malacca. In 1956, the Civil Law Act was introduced, formalizing the role of English law in Malaysia. Section 3 allows English law to fill gaps in Malaysian law, but only if it is compatible with local conditions and does not contradict local legislation. Section 5 of the Civil Law Act 1956 covers English commercial law applying to areas like partnerships, banking, and marine insurance, unless local laws override it. Over time, the need for English commercial law has decreased as Malaysia has codified its own commercial laws. For example, the Partnership Act 1961 and the Companies Act 2016. Section 6 excludes the application of English land law. Instead, Malaysia uses the torrent system of land registration, which is more efficient and provides a clearer ownership record. To further illustrate, let's look at two important cases that highlight the application of English law in Malaysia. The first cases is Syarikat Padusina and UNBC Finance. The court explored the local circumstances proviso in applying English law. The case examined whether English practices of endorsing vehicle ownership claims could be used in Malaysia. The High Court decided that Malaysia's practices differ, following a more locally relevant decision from the Brunei High Court. In Wangsa Timber Industries and Yang Berhad and Belfast Anthony Robert, the issue was whether English common law on easement should be applied in Sabah. The court applied the English Constitution Act 1832 as there were no prohibitions under the Sabah Land Ordinance against applying English law principles, thus allowing the respondent to claim a right of way. In conclusion, Malaysia's legal system has evolved through the integration of various legal traditions. The influence of Adat, Islamic law, and English common law has created a hybrid system that reflects Malaysia's multicultural heritage. The Civil Law in 1956 and key legal cases have shaped how English law applies in the country, ensuring that it complements Malaysia's legal needs while adapting to local circumstances. As the legal system progresses, Malaysia stays committed to upholding a resilient and flexible legal framework shaped by its historical heritage. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Youngzhe. Thanks for listening until now. Next, I will highlight the vital role of Malaysian legal history in shaping our modern laws. Our unique blend of colonial influences, cultural diversity, and historical cases provide legislature with invaluable lessons. By looking back, we can ensure our laws are fair, inclusive, and responsive to contemporary challenges. The Malaysian legal system is deeply rooted in its colonial past and diverse cultural heritage. For instance, the Civil Law Act 1956 allowed the use of English common law when Malaysian legislature is silent. This principle ensures consistency and fairness, reflecting the historical integration of English law during British era. Such continuity helped modern legislature address gaps while respecting historical foundation. Besides, the Federal Constitution, our supreme law since 1957, is a product of compromise among ethnic and cultural groups. In Article 153, which protects the special position of Malays and Aborigines, exemplify this balance. By understanding the history behind this provision, legislature today can adapt the Constitution to current needs while preserving its core principles in inclusivity and unity. Next, historical cases and legal integration. Malaysian legal history also offers guidance through landmark cases. In Tan Chan Lok and Attorney General 1985, the court emphasizes strict adherence to Constitution provision. Meanwhile, No Ananyawai and Borneo Park Plantation 2001 affirmed the recognition of Aborigine land right. A vital aspect of our customary law, our legal system uniquely integrates English common law, Islamic law, and customary law. For example, in Cher Omar bin Cheso, 1988, the court declared that Malaysian legal framework is secular, striking a balance between religious and secular principles. This example shows how history insight helps legislature navigate complex societal dynamics. Last but not least, learning from history also means reviewing outdated law. Example, the Sedition Act 1948, designed during British rule to suppress protests, were reviewed in Masruhaini Shafiei against Government of Malaysia 2018. The court questioned its relevance, urging legislature to rethink its application into the democratic landscape. Furthermore, past successes like the Environmental Quality Act 1974 provide valuable lessons for tackling contemporary issues such as climate change. In conclusion, Malaysian legal history is more than a record of the past. It's a guide to the present and future. By studying it, legislature can craft laws that honor our heritage, respect our diversity, and address to their challenges. Our legislature reminds us that the best way forward is to understand where we have been. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, now we move on to our next point. By learning legal history, you can understand the Malaysian legal system's evolution. This evolution happens through the gradual change of laws throughout time. To understand, law is not static, but it's a dynamic concept that evolves in order to adapt to, number one, societal needs, and number two, technological advancements. Now, for societal needs, let's look at an example. Early legal in Malaysia were referred to as customary law, which is based on the traditions and norms of local Aboriginal communities, such as the Senois, Negritos, and Proto-Malays. Shift from these customary laws to written legal system is marked by the introduction of two main legal digests in the Malacca Empire, which are the Hukum Kanun Malacca and the Undang-Undang Daud Malacca, which contain elements of Hindu and Islamic influence. The British colonization of Malaya, English common law was then introduced, where judicial precedents which set up a framework for the doctrine of stare decisis were implemented. And with this, when we gain a deeper understanding towards this evolution, it allows us to appreciate the responsiveness of our country's legal system to technological advancements. It also led to revolutionary advancements in technology, where in the early to mid-20th century, the amount of cars on the road was increasing at an exponential rate. Now, in response to this, the Road Traffic Ordinance, now known as the Road Transport Act 1987, was enacted in 1958 to regulate road safety and vehicle use. Likewise, the rise of computers and the internet, particularly in the 1990s, led to the enactment of the Computer Crimes Act 1997 to combat the misuse of computers and cybercrime in general. Conclusion, adapting legal systems to address contemporary issues is important, where it is highlighted by understanding the evolving landscape of the Malaysian legal system. To support this point, let's look at Sheikh Omar bin Cheso against public prosecutor. So it's an appeal of the mandatory death sentences passed on to 3 people for drug trafficking and firearms crimes under the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952 and the Firearms Act 1971, respectively. It emphasized the difference between Malaysia's Islamic law and secular law through the ruling of the federal court that Malaysia is a secular state and that Islamic law only applies to personal matters. The second case is Peguam Negara Malaysia and MalaysiaKini.com, Sediaan Berhad, and others. It's a civil appeal case, and it involved an online news portal named Malaysia Kini, which allowed the posting of comments from third-party online subscribers on their published news articles. One particular article was, CJ orders all courts to be fully operational on July 1st. The comments under this article scandalized the judiciary. It highlighted the legal struggles in the internet age as explained in the ruling of the federal court, where the first respondent must have in place a system that detects and automatically removes offensive and defamatory comments in order to avoid liability. So moving on to the impact towards Malaysian customary laws, it protects the rights of Aboriginal people. Now, although written laws are the dominant law in Malaysia, customary law cannot be ignored as it remains crucial for protecting the rights of Aboriginal communities. Said rights are protected under the Aboriginal Peoples Act 1954. It grants statutory rights or usufructuary rights to the Orang Asli, meaning they can settle in land areas designated for their exclusive use. However, the increasing rate of development and modernization in Malaysia creates conflict between land development and the safeguarding of indigenous customs. This conflict can be highlighted through Sagung Bintasi and others, against Kerajaan Negeri Selangor and others, where 38.477 acres of land, which were inhabited by the Tumon people, was acquired by the Selangor state government to build a highway leading to the Kuala Lumpur International Airport. This case is a landmark case concerning the land rights of the Tumon tribe, where the court ruled against the Selangor state government, but the effects is that the court recognized the customary owners of the land.
Talk about the implication toward customary law in Malaysia. First subtopic I'm going to talk about is the current status of customary law in Malaysia. There's a two issue in the current status of customary law in Malaysia, which is land rights and state authority. First, we're going to talk about the land rights. The orang asli and indigenous people face significant challenge regarding land rights. The ancestral lands are not formally recognized under Malaysian law, leading to conflict and displacement. About the state authority, the National Land Code 1965 grants ownership to the state authorities, requiring individuals to register the title. This has resulted in the acquisition of indigenous land for public projects. This can be seen in the case of Selangor State Government and others, and Sentasi and others. The plaintiff was an Aboriginal people of the Tumon tribe. The plaintiff is Sagung Tasi. Tumon's lands at Bukit Tampoy, Sagung had been acquired by the government and others for the development of highway to KLIA. Whether the plaintiff was entitled to receive compensation for deprivation of the ungazetted land. The plaintiff were plainly entitled to a declaration that they had a customary title to the ungazetted land. Federal court has therefore established that the Malaysian common law recognized Aboriginal customary title. The second subtopic we're going to talk about is the significance learning legal history. There's three significance learning legal history, which is preserving heritage, national identity, and understanding diversity. First, we're going to talk about the preserving heritage. Learning legal history helps us understand the evolution of our legal system and the diverse cultural influence that shape it. Secondly, for the national identity, it helps us define our national identity and appreciate the rich history of our legal tradition and practice. And lastly, for understanding diversity, it allows us to understand that diverse ethnic and religious community in Malaysia and their contribution to our legal system. The third subtopic we're going to talk about is discrimination in the legal framework. Firstly, is Charter of Justice and head disparities. For the Charter of Justice, it limited in the legal authority of Islamic law to personal matters, restricting its jurisdiction and leading to conflicts with English law. This can be seen in the case of Nafsiyah and Abdul Majid, which is the plaintiff is Nafsiyah and the defendant is Abdul Majid. This case is about the plaintiff claimed that the defendant pledged to marry her but then breached the promise. The court held that the Court of Judicature Act 1964 prevailed over the other laws, including Islamic law, in case of breach of promise to marry. The impact of British law in this case is the British tendency to apply English law to local inhabitants lead to criticism, as some Islamic matters were interpreted according to English law, contradicting Islamic principles. The second discrimination in the legal framework is health disparities. Health disparities is about Aboriginal communities face higher rates of chronic diseases compared to non-Aboriginal populations. Despite advancement in health education, this highlight the need for greater attention to their health needs. This can be seen in the case of the Semai people and the proposed botanical park. There's a three effect about this, which is stress-related illness, government backdown, and health disparities. The Semai people experienced stress-related illness due to the proposed botanical park, which threatened their ancestral land. Government backed down from the project after public exposure and lobbying by the Semai people, creating them a temporary reprieve. This case highlight the ongoing health disparities faced by Aboriginal communities, who are often disproportionately affected by environmental and social factors. I'm going to addressing the challenge that Aboriginal people face, which is regulation of customary law, land rights protection, and health equity. For regulation of customary law, the government needs to recognize the respect customary law, ensuring that indigenous communities have a voice in decisions that affect their lives. Land rights protection. Stronger legal protection for land rights are essential to prevent further displacement and ensure that indigenous communities have secure access to their ancestral land. And for health equity, addressing the health disparities require targeted interventions and programs that address the unique health needs of Aboriginal communities. This is the government can do for Aboriginal people.
Now I'll be doing the whole conclusion for our group assignment. In short, as Malaysians, it is important to learn about Malaysia's legal history and how current legal system has developed through a combination of traditional practices, colonial influences, and modern change. From the early use of adat customary law to the adoption of English common law, the Malaysian legal system has become a mix of local traditions and formal law. Adat continues to play a role in areas of personal law, land rights, and inheritance, while statutory law is more dominant in criminal and commercial matters. By studying Malaysia's legal history, it helps us to understand how to strike a balance between protecting cultural heritage and meeting the legal needs of today. It also helps to ensure that the rights of all communities are respected within the national legal framework. And that's all from me. Thank you.